You know, there's many different ways for a company to say that gaming isn't for you, that you're not allowed into the club anymore. But probably the ugliest one they could do is when they just price you out. PlayStation announced that they are raising the price of the PlayStation 5 by $100 pretty much across all models, so the normal PS5, the digital, of course the Pro, which they are trying to make you feel bad for not owning a Pro, never forget that, alongside of some other stuff like the PlayStation Portal. This is also coming with Nintendo announcing that their physical games will now have a $10 premium over the digital edition of their games. And of course, all of this ongoing while the prices of tech in general, as well as the specifications, the power of tech, seems to be going down because of the RAM apocalypse. And I know exactly what some people out there are going to say as they carefully defend their favorite giant corporations, which is of course that actually, over the last 6 years that we've had the PlayStation 5, inflation has gone up by around 23 to 25%, meaning that this increase from $500 to $650 over the course of the last 6 years is actually completely in line with the current economic landscape. Just as I can imagine, some people are going to say that it only makes sense that with the rising prices of gas and the difficulties of logistics networks in the world, putting physical copies of things in stores would be more expensive than just magically downloading them from the internet, and that should come at a premium cost. And those sound like perfectly logical arguments if you don't think about them for more than 2 seconds. Because let me remind you that the technology that we're getting an over 25% increase on its price of is 6 years old. And it has seen no improvements, no revamps, no upgrades, no nothing. It's just the same hunk of ugly plastic that we got 6 years ago, except now you're paying more for it. And let me remind you that when you're buying physical copies for games these days, you're not even buying one of those things that can be preserved for years and years, and that if you wanted to, in the next 20 years you could pop into the console and play, because half the time they are game key cards that still require the servers to be online in order for you to play the games, meaning that they can take them away from you whenever they want. But now you get to pay more money in order to have the same amount of control. Unless you're into collecting plastic, it's not really worth it anymore, because trust me, I've collected physical games for a long time. I don't collect them because I like the plastic. I collect them because I like the idea of owning my media, which game keycards are not that. Now, the fact that these companies are trying to price us out of our own hobby is pretty bad on its own, but there's a long list of things that are actually happening behind the scenes of how they want to destroy the perception of video games. You see, PlayStation 5's price increase isn't just about Sony making money, which they desperately need considering the amount of bad decisions they make with their investment. It's about transforming the entryway product of a console that allows people to enjoy video games into an asset, into something that holds a value just because it exists, and that will change over time and not depreciate. Nintendo is looking to not make physical games anymore, and they're not being subtle about it. And the entire process of this going down is all manipulating us as customers to give up things that we used to have, and basically saying that we either play along or we don't get to play at all. The good news is that there are ways to fight this. There are ways to push back on this and make our voices heard, and we will talk about those right after we talk about how terrible everything seems to be at the moment. Because if you're a regular on the channel, you know that I'm always here to try and look at things as optimistically as possible, but damn, this situation is really difficult. It's not looking good. We're speaking of regulars. Hi, I'm Mug, by the way, and if you're new here, welcome, and if you're not new here, welcome back. It's great to see you, and you're looking fantastic. I don't know if PlayStation agrees, but I think you look better than a PS5 Pro. And those things are expensive. You know how it goes at this point. If you like the video, hit the like button, helps the video spread throughout the YouTube algorithm, helps what is hopefully a good message reach more people. And if you really like the way that I cover news, reviews, and everything in the world of games, consider subscribing, but maybe don't do it yet. Wait until you make sure that what I do here on the channel is worth your time, because your time is valuable. With that out of the way, your money's not welcome here, according to a lot of people. Let's get into it. Now look, I know this might come off as old man yells at clouds, but I was alive at a time where the expectation was that video game consoles would go down in price over time, especially as we got closer to the release of new consoles. Heck, I even remember a time where things like the PS2 Slim existed. Heck, I still remember things like the PS1 or the PS2 Slim, a time where we would get revisions of consoles that would come out at a lower price than the original one. We would get significant improvements to the console and pay less. But I might as well just also be remembering a time where the games came on discs and they were finished and you could hold on to them forever and then just pop them into the hardware and you could play it. And as I said in the intro, a lot of people are going to defend this as just the natural progression when it comes to inflation and our money being worth less. The investor's mentality: might as well buy something now with the money you have than wait for your money to depreciate. But the truth is that when it came to technology for many, many years, your money would depreciate more or less at the same speed that technology would. We're talking about a PlayStation, not a property. But that is not what PlayStation wants you to think anymore. Instead, they want you to view the PlayStation 5 and I guess every Sony product as an asset. They're definitely not going to tell you that we've reached a technological plateau. Of course not. The PlayStation 6 is going to be so many times better than the PlayStation 5. It's just that the PlayStation 5 is so good that it needs to keep going up in price. And speaking of back in my day, this used to be called opportunism. You see, using the excuses of the ongoing apocalypse of tech, the prices of everything because of AI, the shortages, the logistics, the transportation, the manufacturing, so many circumstances around the world affecting production and distribution, why wouldn't they take this opportunity to raise the price? You might as well do it at a time when the most people will find it at least slightly logical. But the problem is, this isn't a one-time thing. This is a way for them to establish the new norm, how things will work moving forward, even if in the future we aren't witnessing the changes to inflation or all of these problems that we have ongoing today. In an ideal utopic world where everything is solved and economies are booming, the PlayStation 6 is going to follow the exact same playbook because that's what gives PlayStation the most value. On top of that, there's one part of it that's even slimier, and that is conditioning. All it takes is one console generation where instead of seeing the price of it go down over time, it goes up to convince everybody that they should buy the next console day one, making sure that demand skyrockets at launch and during the first year of its life, of course, propelling the stock price and the overall revenue of the company, because people will be afraid that if they sit and wait, the console will just go up in price. So you better buy it as quickly as you can. It's all a strategy to cement the value of what a console is and propel it into the future, even if it goes contrary to everything that we know within technology. And by setting a new standard, they slowly condition you into making even worse decisions, all designed to screw you over. So hey, if you were looking for a PS5 to experience a game like Crimson Desert, that's gonna cost more now. And if you wanted to play it at the best possible conditions, you know, a bit more stable with better FPS, maybe better resolution, you better go for that PS5 Pro. I mean, it's only about $900. What is that? Rent in many places? Pfft, come on, what are you? Poor? Now, I'm gonna go back to talking about PlayStation in just a minute, and especially the value proposal of where hardware and video games are at. But I do want to quickly talk about Nintendo because they're doing the textbook example of how to condition people and change the narrative to fit them. In this case, announcing that physical copies of games are going to cost $10 more, adjusting of course for logistics, distribution, and production. Translating this into words that actually matter, you'll be getting around a 15% discount on average if you buy a game digital instead of physical. And this isn't the first time we've seen this playbook. The result of that is that people are struggling, in case you haven't noticed. Not everybody's swimming in money. And normally when money's tight, the first thing to go out the window are things you don't technically need, like hobbies or things that bring you joy. So now that people's wallets are incredibly tight, that 15% discount if you buy digital is a huge deal. And considering that we've also been conditioned over the years that the physical copy is just a worthless piece of plastic that does nothing unless the servers are up, why pay 15% more for something that is identical, especially if it's a game key card? And so, a ton of people, the majority of people, will look at the situation and say, well, I'm not stupid and I'm not going to overpay for something, when in reality, they just raise the price of it. And they'll start buying digital. In a couple of years, Nintendo will come out with a report, and you can clip this if you want, saying that physical sales have been down, so down that they're just not going to release some of their games physically anymore, until eventually the only stuff that releases physical are the big ones, if at all. The thing is, the shift to digital was manufactured by them in order to then create the headline that they can use as an example of why they're getting rid of physical. And again, it's a long process, including stuff like those game key cartridges. Now, I do want to give Nintendo a little bit of props where it's due, and they do at least have that system where you can lend your digital games to people. At least that's there to still provide something, at least, a modicum of customer-first approach. But the number of advantages that game makers have by doing this, it's just ridiculous. Well, yes, it's true that there is a higher price for physical copies that they currently take on. We all know that a lot of this has to do with lending games to other people, with the resale market, with you owning your media and being able to do with it whatever you want, including selling it on eBay or whatever. And they really don't like the idea of you owning anything. So, where is this all headed, and what can we do about it? Well, quite a lot, actually. The interesting part about this circumstance is that PlayStation is not in a good spot, even if they would have you believe the opposite. I've covered this before in other videos if you want to go back and look at the actual facts and the numbers on paper, but PlayStation is the major breadwinner for Sony. It is the division that they rely on to make the most money, and they haven't been doing great. On paper, it looks like they are, because it still makes a ton of money. It's what happens when you sell over 90 million consoles, and you get a cut of everything that sells on that console, be it physical, digital, microtransaction, whatever it might be. But when it comes to their internal development, they fumbled as much as possible, ruining live service after live service experiment, and now even announcing that they will no longer be publishing their games on PC. However, we know that the numbers aren't in their favor. As recently seen with Marathon, 80% of the game sales were on Steam. Only 20% of its user base are on PlayStation 5, which makes Marathon not that big of a success. It's definitely not made its money back and probably won't make its money back ever. Definitely not a Concord, as many people predicted. I did not. I was never on that bandwagon, leave me alone, by the way. I thought Marathon was going to be okay, and it's a bit under okay, but what matters there is the numbers. 80% of players playing on Steam means that a lot of people prefer to play PlayStation games on PC. What I find even more interesting, and of course we could never really find this out without proper studies to back it up, but I would wager that a large amount of people that bought Marathon on Steam also own a PS5, and they just prefer to game on PC. And I wonder just how many people are double dipping on PlayStation's releases on PC because they want to play the ultimate version of the game with all the bells and whistles and customization that they would like. How many of those people are going to default back to just playing the games worse on a PS5? I don't know, but what has been clear is that the only market that has been actively growing over the last years is PC, at least when it comes to hardcore gaming, because mobile has always been growing, but even that is beginning to stagnate compared to PC's growth. The reason that all matters is because PC is pretty much one of the only platforms where you still get to own your games. No, I'm not talking about Steam, I'm talking about you owning your games, okay? But yes, also, Steam is one of the few customer first, at least in its majority, companies in the business still. And obviously, with more and more gamers pivoting towards PC day after day, the signs for a PlayStation 6 and what their strategy of buy this as soon as possible because it's an asset might be falling by the wayside. It will never topple the empire because there's way too many people in the general mainstream, the EA Sports FC players, the Call of Duty diehards, that will just buy the most convenient console. But I think that the gaming market, and the stats are there to back it up, don't support that being the future, or at least being enough to be sustainable. And yes, a lot of the progress that we've been looking for has been stunted by the very same RAM apocalypse and AI nightmare hellscape that Sony is using in order to bump up their prices and screw over the average customer. But the train isn't stopping. We're moving towards a world where Xbox with their Project Helix is just making a living room PC. Valve is making a living room PC, except that one's going to run on SteamOS, so it'll be more efficient. And more people are gaming on PCs. Every day, the concept of gaming is closer to people sitting at a desk playing games than it is sitting on a couch. And as that continues to transform, PlayStation might not be in the great position they think they are, which leads me to what we can actually do about this. And it's pretty simple. If you are watching this channel, and especially if you've watched this channel in the past, there's a pretty good chance you're a savvy customer, you think this is a scummy practice, you see behind a lot of the stuff that they're trying to pull on us, and you don't support it. But that's not enough to change the tide, because our wallets aren't going to be loud enough on something like this. So instead, this message needs to get out there in a way that actually hurts them. If you have a friend that was thinking of buying a PS5 or a PS5 Pro for $900, I urge you, use this video if necessary. Encourage them to buy a PC or some other alternative. Get them to buy an Neo and go retro gaming or something. Just help them understand that this is not a good move for them, and it's also not a good move for gamers in general. And that to me is the convincing part of it. It is better for every customer out there to basically buy anything but a PlayStation at this point. If you own a PlayStation 5 and you think what PlayStation is doing is disgusting, don't buy their stuff. If you want them to actually respect you as a customer and give you options on how to play your games, maybe consider supporting their games on PC so that they have to rethink what they're actually going to do with their single-player games moving forward. Tell your friends to invest better into their hobby in ways that are actually going to make the experience more enjoyable and give them more control over what they own. Because we've now reached the point that basically every other company is more customer-friendly than PlayStation. Nintendo, getting rid of physical copies, is at least still looking out for customers a tiny bit more than PlayStation and definitely making better games. Xbox is in such a losing position that they will beg and grovel in order for us to love them again. And hey, I've been very public in saying that I have no issue with Xbox because my Game Pass is paid until 2031 and they put out games that I play, so easy for me. And of course, if you own a PC, especially if you're like me and desperately wondering every day if you should switch to Linux, which, if this is the sign you needed, God, Windows, please, why are you so bad? Please, Windows, be better. We're moving towards an age where you owning your PC, every part of it, what it does, and customizing it so that you can play games exactly as you wish has never been closer. And if you are dedicated to the hobby of gaming, if it's one of the things that brings you joy in this life that can be so agonizingly negative, you owe it to yourself to invest in something that actually cares about you in return. And maybe it's time to buy a PC so that the executives at Sony that keep thinking that the next multiplayer live service slop is going to make them the most money ever in the universe can shut up and cry all the way back to the unemployment line until they get hired as a CEO at Oracle or Amazon or whatever. Ugh. Just breathe, man. Don't let them win. Whatever you do, don't let them win. Don't let their scummy tactics go unnoticed. Make sure that what they're doing is clear, because I find it disgusting that they're trying to transform what is just the box that allows you to enjoy these great pieces of art and turning it into a prohibitively expensive asset that we must fight over, as if it's some sort of status symbol. Don't let that be the future of console gaming. Punish where we should. You know how it works. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. Maybe, since you're here at the end of the video, I've earned your subscription. And if that's the case, hit the button. It's always appreciated. An extra special thanks to the members of the Wall. These are the people that directly support me and everything that I do directly, be they members here on YouTube or on Patreon. And I am eternally grateful. Please go out there and enjoy some great video games. Just make sure that you're making the decisions that respect you, your wallet, and everything that you love about this hobby the best you can. And remember, it's worth it to just smile and have some fun, because that's what matters the most. Just sometimes we have to take on these little side quests of showing these corporations who's in charge. And no matter what they think, that's always going to be the customer. I'll see you again very soon.